March 2005. Life is moving along. I'm still working at Frame Art Galleries for a little bit more. I'm the only employee at their Westlake branch. If the store is open, I'm there. Sometimes I'm there when it's not open. So picture framing, living next to the police station in North Ridgeville, reading a lot of books. That's about all I can think of that was going on back in March of 2005. Excuse me. So let's jump into the books. That's what we're all here for. And the first book that I read in March of 2005 was Dime Store Magic by Kelly Armstrong. This is the third book in the Otherworld, Women of the Otherworld series. And our main character is the witch, Paige Winterbourne. She was introduced in the second book in the series. Now, I mentioned this when I talked about the first book in the series, Bitten. One of the things I liked is Kelly Armstrong takes a character from one of the previous books who isn't the main character and makes them the main character in a later book. So in the first two books, our main character is a female werewolf. In the second book, she meets Paige Winterbourne. Now Paige gets her own book. Anyway, she's a witch, hiding that she's a witch. People don't. This isn't a world where everybody knows magic and supernatural things exist. And Paige has to take care of Savannah Levine, who is an orphan, I think. And her mother was a dark witch. Paige has to teach her the ways of being a good witch and, how to keep it out of sight. But there are people that want Savannah for their own nefarious reasons. Paige has to keep her safe while keeping her secret. I really like these books. Kelly Armstrong. I haven't read the entire Women of the Otherworld series, but the ones I've read I've really enjoyed. Kelly Armstrong has written some thrillers that I have not read, but I'm going to have to check those out. But Dime Store Magic, Kelly Armstrong. The next book, The Lust Lizard of Melancholy Cove by Christopher Moore. This is, I believe, the second in the Pine Cove series. And the town's psychiatrist has decided to stop giving out antidepressants and simply give all of his patients placebos, which causes an uptick in the attendance at the local blues bar. And there's basically a sea serpent named Steve who is attracted to Pine Cove by the melodious blues music, and this causes all sorts of shenanigans. It's another light-hearted, fun, with a supernatural edge to it kind of story from Christopher Moore, and pretty good. I enjoyed it well enough. After that, we have The Batman Handbook by Scott Beatty. And this is a nonfiction book. The subtitle of it is The Ultimate Training Manual. It's illustrated, and it just tells you things like how to bulletproof your Batmobile, how to train a sidekick, how to execute a backflip, how to throw a batarang. Everything you need to know to become your own Batman. Just a fun, interesting book that one shouldn't take seriously. The Batman Handbook by Scott Beatty. I have to turn the page. Next up, we have a book that I wish I had still. Final Destination, Dead Reckoning by Natasha Rhodes. And in this book, our main character is Jess Golden. She's part of a rock band, and she has a vision that the venue they're playing in is going to collapse. She and some other people get out before disaster strikes. And if you know Final Destination at all, you know the drill. At this time, I don't remember who the publisher was. I should look it up, but someone was publishing Final Destination novels, Friday the 13th, Jason X, and Nightmare on Elm Street. I think those are the four. And I was getting them all as they were coming out. I don't have any of them anymore, and they are all rather expensive if you can find them online or out in the world. So I really wish I still had them. Um, but the only problem with the Final Destination books, which were, I think, my least favorite, is that the convoluted deaths, in my opinion, didn't work quite as well on the page as they do on the screen. There's something about seeing each little bit and all of the red herrings, and then how it finally comes to be. Seeing it for me just worked better than the author having to spell everything out. That's just my opinion. But there's still, if you like the franchise, I think you're going to like the books. So that's Final Destination, Dead Reckoning, Natasha Rhodes. Next up, we have The Sea Dragon's Daughter by Alan F. Troop. This is part of the Dragon Della Sangre series about Peter Della Sangre, who is basically a were-dragon. And in this book, a water dragon, I keep saying basically, a female water dragon appears off the coast of Miami. I think the water dragons are supposed to be extinct, and so her appearance throws Peter Della Sangre's life sort of into chaos, and people are dying. Is she killing them? How is this going to affect Peter Della Sangre, the were-dragon, who's trying to, hide his nature from the people in the world? Fun books and an interesting concept. There's tons and tons of werewolf books, a few other books with different were creatures, but were dragons aren't something we really see. I don't think I've ever seen them outside of this. So The Sea Dragon's Daughter, Alan F. Troop. Then we have Other Side, with a Y, S-Y-D-E, Other Side by J. Michael Straczynski, creator of Babylon 5, one of the greatest science fiction TV shows, in my opinion. In this book, we have Chris, who he and his mother have moved to California from the other side of the country, and he starts at a new school, befriends a sort of an outsider, outcast kid named Roger, and they're passing notes using lemon juice or invisible ink when a mysterious message appears, a message that neither one of them wrote. It is a supernatural being that identifies itself as Other Side, and Roger wants to use this being, use the power that it promises to get revenge on all the people that have tormented him, whereas Chris is trying to resist the power and keep Roger from going off the deep end. And then there's a teacher and a cop and stuff going on, all sorts of stuff going on. I really like J. Michael Straczynski as a writer. I've read a bunch of his comic book stuff that I've enjoyed. I've talked about him before. I love Babylon 5. I've read other short stories and novels by him, and just a very imaginative writer, very talented writer. Other Side by J. Michael Straczynski. Next up, Incubi by Edward Lee. This is a limited edition from Necro Publications. I think I found this at Half Price Books. It's number 259 of 326 copies, signed and numbered. I don't see any illustrations in there. Incubi. So in this book, I think, sort of generally speaking, people are familiar with the term succubi, which is a female demon that feeds on the sexual energy of her victims. Seduces a man, sucks up his life force. So I think more people are familiar with that than an incubi, which is essentially the male version of a succubi. It's a male demon, seduces women, sucks up their life force. So in this book, there are these grisly sexual murders being investigated by a cop. So he's one of our main characters, and then there's a woman who is being seduced by this evil. Will she be saved? Can she save herself? What's going to happen? Is it going to be over the top and disgusting? I mean, it is Edward Lee, and it's one of his older books. Let's see. Let's check the copyright on this puppy. This says, original copyright is 1991. This edition is 2002. And I believe that it's in print from somebody. Don't take my word for it, but I believe it's available. Incubi, Edward Lee. Great, great stuff, because it's Edward Lee. After that, we have Cold Service by Robert B. Parker, a Spencer novel that focuses on Hawk. Hawk is left for dead. He's brutally attacked. He's left for dead. Spencer is going to help him recover and get revenge on the people that left him for dead. So there's a lot of history about Hawk, what makes Hawk the person he is, what makes Spencer the person he is, a lot of sort of philosophical discussions. Excuse me. And this is the kind of stuff I like from Robert B. Parker. The mysteries in the Spencer books, for me, are secondary to all the character stuff that's going on. And Hawk is a great character, and so I like when we get these really character-driven stories. And there's lots of red herrings and things. There's a number of different people that could be responsible for what happened to Hawk, so there still is a bit of a mystery element to it, but it's all about the characters. Cold Service, Robert B. Parker. Next up, to balance out the Batman Handbook, I read How to Be a Villain by Neil Zawacki. And this is a nonfiction book, but it's all about choosing the kind of villain that you want to be. Do you want to be a mad scientist? Do you want to be like an evil corporate overlord? Are your plans to just have nefarious schemes, or do you want to take over the world? How do you choose your secret lair? How do you choose your outfit? Very tongue-in-cheek, very fun book about all the decisions one must make before they become a supervillain. Or a villain, but generally it's supervillain type of stuff. Very funny stuff. How to Be a Villain, Neil Zawacki. Then we have Reflex by Stephen Gould. This is the sequel to Jumper. And in Jumper, we're introduced to Davey, who learns that he has the ability to teleport. Any place he has seen, he can jump there. And in the first book, it's him learning to use his powers, him running from the government, and stuff like that. A really, really enjoyable book, in my opinion. I've not seen the movie. I've seen clips from it. I've heard people talk about it. There's so little of that book in the movie, as far as I can tell. Like, so many characters, so many things that don't exist in the book are in that movie. There's a companion book that has another character that turns out to be a jumper, I think, that came out at the time of the movie that sort of tied into the movie more than the book. I don't know. But anyway, in Reflex, Davey, as far as he knows, is still the only teleporter in the world, but he's captured by an organization that wants to use him, and they've found a way to keep him from being able to teleport. They want to discover how to use his powers. And there's some other conflict that I don't want to mention, but it's very important to the story. And we can talk about it in the comments if you care, but I really recommend this. I recommend Jumper and then Reflex. You got to read them in that order. By Stephen Gould. Very, very good science fiction, character-driven science fiction. Penultimate book for March of 2005 is The Dreaming Dark, Book 1, The City of Towers by Keith Baker. This is a Dungeons and Dragons novel that takes place in the world of Eberron, if that's how you say it. And this is the first book about Eberron. At the time, it was a brand new setting for Dungeons and Dragons. It features the city of Sharn, and it is very D&D-esque, where you have a group of different types of people, wizard, fighter, what have you, and they've come back from a war to the city of Sharn, I believe, trying to sort their lives out. It's a world where someone described it as spellpunk, because basically magic is used in place of technology. Again, D&D, so you're going to have all sorts of different creatures and things. Fun stuff. It's not a bad setting. I might have a couple books. I'll have to look and see if they're set in Eberron. There's a couple books that I actually own that I love, that we'll get to eventually, that are Dungeons and Dragons setting, but I can't remember if they're Eberron or not. But The Dreaming Dark, Book 1, City of Towers by Keith Baker, a Dungeons and Dragons Eberron novel. The very first one. And finally, the last book that I read in March of 2005 is Justice League of America, Green Lantern, Hero's Quest by Dennis O'Neil. This is part of the Justice League of America series that had, I'm looking over there, and we had, it looks like Batman, the Flash, Wonder Woman, or maybe I have that, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, then JLA, everybody together, then this one, and the last one's going to be Superman. Weird that it had the JLA in the middle of that, but in this one, our Green Lantern is Kyle Rayner. He's a new Green Lantern. He has just joined the Justice League, and he goes to the Justice League Watchtower, or their headquarters. I assume it's the Watchtower at this point. And all of his teammates are missing, and so it's all about Kyle Rayner trying to find his teammates and stop the catastrophic thing that his missing teammates sort of indicate. The fact that they're gone, there's going to be a catastrophe. I was going to say catastrophic event. Catastrophe. I like Kyle Rayner as a Green Lantern. Dennis O'Neil is a fantastic writer. Wrote one of my favorite comic books of all time, The Question. Has done lots of other great stuff. Did the Hard Traveling Heroes with the Hal Jordan Green Lantern and Green Arrow. And that was a fantastic run on that comic. Anyway, Dennis O'Neil, great writer. Fun story. Justice League of America, Green Lantern, Hero's Quest by Dennis O'Neil. And that's everything that I read in March of 2005. I almost dropped my notebook. Question for this video. Are you a fan of the Final Destination movies? Let's talk about our destinations being final. Have you watched the movies? Do you have a favorite? Do you have a least favorite? Do you not care about them at all? We're going to talk about it in the comments below. I am a fan of the series. I think that number 4 is terrible. It's absolutely the worst one of them all. Terrible, terrible CGI. Some deaths that really don't make a lot of sense, logistically speaking. Excuse me for just a moment. So, excuse me, yeah, number 4, terrible. Number 5 has my favorite death. Initially, my favorite death was in number 2. And it's a tough call for my favorite of the movies. It's a tough call between 1 and 2. 1, the original, which was supposed to be an X-Files episode, I believe. Originally, it's a couple X-Files writers that made the movie. And they had pitched it as an X-Files episode. I think I have all of this correct. And there was supposed to be an actual physical embodiment killing the people off. But of course, changes were made before it got to the big screen. And it became this sort of esoteric death that we know and love. So I love the ingenuity of the first movie. It's got some great deaths in it. And then the second movie has just, up until number 5, it had my favorite death in it, simply because of the graphics of it. It was fantastic. And 3, I enjoy 3. I really enjoy the Blu-ray, which gave you the ability, if you had the right copy of the Blu-ray, I don't know if they all have this, you could make decisions throughout the movie that would change the movie. So just for example, when the 2 young ladies go into the tanning booth, they set the temperature in the tanning booth. Well, the movie will pause for a second and give you a choice on where to set it. And then so you can choose what they choose, or you can choose a different temperature. And if you choose the other temperature, it changes what happens to them. And it goes so far, there's one point where you can actually save a character's life and they don't die, and they appear later in the movie. Fantastic concept. But not the best movie, but still pretty good. 4, terrible. 5, the weakest of the 4 that are good, but it does now have my favorite death in it, which is, I'll just say it's the gymnast. I just love that death. And you know, I'm cautiously optimistic about the reboot or whatever that's coming up. So I enjoy the movies generally. Just that one really weak spot in the series. But what about you? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Have you never seen them? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is... I'm not going to tell you. First of all, wow, I just got into that rhythm. I'm not on Twitter anymore. If you care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Bluesky in the description below. That's all I've got for you this week. So until next week, read more books.